Hey, I got this 1999 BMW M3. It's an E36 with an S52 engine, and I'm gonna replace the thermostat housing with it. I've replaced everything in the cooling system except for this. I thought I could scoot by, and then nope, it's starting to leak. Some of the walls are corroding inside of it, so we're gonna pop this old one off here, and we're gonna swap her on there. It shouldn't take too long. Should be a pretty easy job. The hardest part is taking that fan off with the special tool here. Alright, you want to take off your radiator cover here. I believe it's number 10. I will confirm with some words. But there's only 4 screws holding this bad boy in. And I believe I only have 3. So as soon as you get that off, you just want to pull that bad boy up and pull it away. It should just pull away from here. Mine didn't have the clamp around that tubing going down to the alternator cooler. So just make sure you keep everything together. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do is pull out the fluid in the radiator. Now you can use the drain and it'll get everywhere, or you can siphon it out with one of these hand siphons. These hand pumps I got from Harbor Freight. Very cheap but very useful. And so I'm going to pull out all the used water / coolant, and I'm going to collect it in a bucket. Nice and easy. This is a lot cleaner. And then you just go take the bucket and empty it. Not sure where yet, but I know there's a place somewhere around here. Alright, the next thing you want to do here is remove this upper radiator hose. Just 2 straps that you can remove with a flathead screwdriver. This one is in a slightly tough place than normal, but we'll get through it. We'll get through it together. Once you got those bad boys loose, you can pull the radiator hose out. Now this is a new radiator hose, so I'm gonna have to replace it. It looks like it's sweating, it seems. I don't know. We're gonna check it again after I replace this thermostat housing. See how it goes. But got it on Rock Auto, so who knows. But once you remove that, we're going to go ahead and throw the siphon in there, aka pump, that we got from Harbor Freight for $9. And that was a couple years ago. It might have went up, you know. So you want to pump that fluid out, the coolant / water mixture. And I got a little dribble everywhere on the ground, just a tad, but that's a lot better than I would have if I tried to throw something flat underneath to catch all of it. But so far so good. Alright guys, you're going to need one of these fan removal tools. I got mine at www.turnermotorsport.com, and they're fairly affordable. They're about $30 or under. They're about the same price everywhere, but you basically need to hold that fan housing while you loosen the nut, and this thing holds it by overlapping 2 of the bolts. And it shows here with what size engines and what model and years, but it definitely works for the 99 E36 M3, the S52 engine. I've used this thing more than once, probably 5 times, and it's come in handy. It's very well made. So once you got it locked in there, you want to overlap the tool. The tool fits over these nuts and holds it while you loosen it. And it's lefty tighty, righty loosey. And I've already loosened it, so you didn't see all the struggle. But it took me a while to get in there and get it just right. So don't, you know, it took me probably 10 minutes. But once you get it, you'll know. And I didn't have the right tool. Luckily I had this crescent wrench that fit. but it's a fairly big nut. But once you get her loose enough, you can just spin her off like that. But just be very careful you don't spin her off so fast that she flies and hits your radiator and puncture a hole. You don't want all that mess happening on you, especially if it's a new radiator like mine. So I just kind of move it out of the way and sneak it in to the radiator housing. Kind of fits in there like all nice and snug. But once you have that out of the way, that'll give you enough room to throw your wrench in there, because you're going to need a little bit of an extension. There's 4 bolts on this housing that we need to get to. So, trying to get the job done, I totally forgot to record the video. But there was only 4 bolts. They were a little bit tricky to get to on those bottom ones, but you just fill around, pop the socket on there, and you're good to go. Use a socket wrench and a 1/2-inch socket, a deep well socket. I can't remember why the number 10's sitting there, but I'm 100% sure I used it as well. But I believe I needed the 1/2-inch deep well and an extension just to fit in there. Once you got that, you can just pop her loose. I believe the last time I put this on, I used some RTV silicone. Once you pop her loose again, you want to loosen up the lower radiator hose. It's also a strap. You'll need a flathead to loosen that. Here I realize I didn't loosen it yet, but once you loosen it, it's pretty simple. Pull her out. I left it attached to the radiator at the very bottom. No need to remove that one. Just remove it from the thermostat housing. That's all. Stubborn little guy. Weird angle. But once she's loose, you can just pull her out. Super simple. And look at that, not a drop. That's my favorite part about it. So this is what it looks like after I pulled her off. I made that gasket. You know, it held up for a while, but a year or so later, it's starting to show signs of leaking. But I didn't have the rubber gasket to go into it, so I made my own. And it, like I said, it held for about a year. But the problem is that these side walls here were corroded out on both sides here. Very, very strange. But I thought it would hold if I cleaned it well and put that silicone around it just good enough that it sealed it enough. And for a year it held well. So once you pull her off, you're good to go. I'm going to clean her up on the block and put some silicone around it, just a little thin layer, and we should be ready to go. Alright, using your 11 millimeter socket. So far I've used 10 millimeter, 11 millimeter, 1/2 inch, for other variations. But for this, you need your 11 millimeter. And this is a little bracket. I'm not real sure what it's for, but it actually gets in the way of putting the thermostat housing back on. When I pulled it off, it wasn't a big deal, but putting it on, you got to sneak it in there, and if you have silicone on it, you're going to smear it, and you're not wanting that. You want to put a nice little surface without smearing it and making it weak in certain areas. So, and don't hate me, but I totally forgot to record me applying the RTV silicone. I did a nice smooth layer all the way around the circumference of the thermostat housing, and I gently placed it on with 2 bolts just to hold it in place. And once I got that in there, I applied slight pressure, and then I put all the bolts in and gently torqued them in an X pattern to the specifications, which I don't know. I just kind of came up with my own specifications. I call it snug. but you do you. Just a reminder, this is a 1/2 inch socket I used. And once you're done tightening that up and getting there snug, you want to put the lower coolant hose here, radiator hose. It's a little tricky, so you might have to use a flat edge to pop her in there and get her around those new ribs. That old thermostat housing, the ribs are almost completely gone. It's almost smooth. So it was really nice to see these sharp, smooth edges, or sharp edges on this new thermostat housing. Once you pop her over that bad boy, you want to tighten her up with a flat edge, aka screwdriver. Now make sure she's snug, because once pressure is built up, she will fly off. So make sure she's really good to go there. Alright, once you're there with the radiator hose, you want to put the fan back on, which is a pain in the behind. So I didn't record the whole process, but it took almost as long as it took me to take it off. So you gotta do lefty tighty righty loosey. And you know, it's backwards, and so it's a bit annoying. But eventually I got it on there, and I got it torqued to specifications, aka whatever I thought was right, which was pretty tight. Using the tension bar to put on the housing to stop the things from spinning when you tighten it. Once you're there, you want to put all the upper hosings back to their rightful locations. And once you get it on there, you want to tighten them up so that when the pressure is applied to the system, it does not fly off. So the next thing you want to do is tighten up that weird bracket we loosened earlier. That's an 11 millimeter, you know, specifications, aka whatever, is snug. And then, you know, you put the radiator housing back on. Super easy. 4 bolts. Still don't remember what size socket it is, but I will put it with words right here. But I only have 3. Some people might have 2. Why others probably don't even have their housing. But either way, what we're going to do is, once these are tightened, we're going to close the hood for the night, clean up, and let that RTV silicone settle for 24 hours. That is probably going to be the best outcome that we could possibly have. Alright, it's been 24 hours. And she should be nice and hardened. The next thing we're going to do is tighten all the screw straps, or whatever these things are called. I really don't know what they're called, but let's get them snug. And take the overflow cap off. I just replaced this housing. It was all cracked. Replaced it last summer. We're gonna fill her up with just water. That way we can get it running, purge, get the air out of it, and build pressure, and find leaks if there are any. Once you fill her up, I went ahead and started the car. and you just kind of set idly and filled it up as the water level lowered. Once she starts bubbling up, I went ahead and popped the radiator cap back on. We're gonna wait and get that pressure built up now. And I turned my heater on all the way full blast. Alright, once the pressure starts building up, we're going to purge the air. And how we're going to do that, we're going to use this little screw here next to the cap. And we're going to loosen it up. Not all the way, you don't want to take it off. But as you loosen it up, as the pressure builds, you'll get a little bit of air coming out of there, bubble up. And then when it goes clear again, you just want to tighten her up. And then wait again until the pressure builds up again. Once that happens, loosen her up again. Just be careful, she'll spit at you. And once it slows down and stops, tighten her back up again. And you want to repeat this a few times until it just doesn't happen anymore. You're always going to get something, but when the big bubbles are gone, you should be good. Once you confirm that you have no more leaks, you want to go ahead and fill it up with antifreeze. And I pulled out a little bit of the water in the reservoir. Actually, all of it. Pulled it all out. I'm going to replace it with some antifreeze and run the car, get it mixed up. Once she's nice and full, you want to throw the cap back on and let her idle until she starts warming up all the way. Pressure's built. You want to purge her a little bit more, maybe 1 or 2 times. Drive around the block, and you're pretty much good to go. The car's staying stable, temperature-wise, right in the middle. I just kind of stood around, checked if any were leaking underneath or around any of the hoses, and so far, pretty good to go. If I had any kind of leaks, we would need to investigate further, but so far so good. Then you might want to go drive around the block a couple times and just kind of keep your eye on the temperature gauge until you know 100% that you've completed the job perfectly. I appreciate you watching, and if anything blows up, I'll definitely do an update to the video. But so far so good. Until next time.